All right, y'all. Today I got a pretty cool deck profile. Pretty cool because I like this deck a lot. I think it's really fun. I also think it's really good. And you're combining two really awesome Digimon in one deck, and it actually synergizes. And that's actually going to be Magnagarurumon with Ancientgarurumon, and effectively you're playing Ancient Light Hybrid. You can't call it Blue Hybrid anymore because Bandai decided this card was going to be a yellow card and make things a little difficult. But that's not going to stop us from playing this deck. These are all good cards, especially in combination. There's a lot of cool things you can do now with this deck. The Ancient is a really strong card. Historically, it always has been. He alone wasn't enough for the current meta. But now these two other cards, which is Magnagarurumon and Lobomon, with this triple tamer, which is kind of the whole thing with this deck, now allow you to do these insane kind of plays. You're getting a bunch of memory. It's a good deck. Let's get into the profile. All right. To start things off, we're playing 4 copies of Hyarimon, 1 copy of Wanyamon. These are your draw eggs. Hyarimon triggering when your opponent doesn't have a Digimon with a source under it, and Wanyamon when you have a blue tamer under it. You want more consistency with this deck. You need a lot of combo pieces to do all the crazy plays that the deck has access to. Wanyamon triggers when you have a blue tamer, which is going to be a spoiler. I do play blue tamers in this deck. That's easy. You know, these are just draw eggs. You want to play as many draw eggs as you can. However, one unique variable with this deck is that you want to be able to trigger these when attacking draw effects with a card later in this deck. So on to the level 3s. The first card we're playing is 4 copies of BT6 Stravimon. It's a 4 play cost rookie, which I hope you never have to do. It evils over a blue egg for 0. The main effect is just a beautiful piece of art. I really love the artwork on this Stravimon, but that's not why we're playing it. We're playing it for this inherited effect, which is when attacking once per turn, if this Digimon is a hybrid or a 10 warrior, when you just gain a memory. Now, before this card was kind of good. It was okay in the sense that you can always proc this effect if this turned into a hybrid. Now this card is insane because you can recycle that inherited effect. One of the unique elements of this deck that you're going to see, a lot of the strengths from these hybrid cards don't come from their main effect. They actually come from what these inherited effects are. Because you're going to see later in the video that you're tucking these cards as ammunition under your tamers, and you're proccing these effects multiple times. And when it dies, you're going to go ahead and tuck it right under that tamer again. 4 copies. It's so good that even red hybrid players play 1 or 2 copies of this card. We're also playing 4 copies of BT7 Stravimon. This card also is a beautiful piece of art. Play cost 3 Digimon. It has on play, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add a hybrid, a Susano, or a Koji. It's kind of your main searcher. It's a little bit power crept in today's games because a lot of these good searchers now are able to add 2 cards. It's still relevant, it's still good, but we really play this card because of his on deletion inherited effect, which is on deletion, you need to play out a Koji Minamoto from your hand onto the board without paying the cost. I kind of wish we had more of these Strabia effects that say on deletion, because one of the things of this deck is you're constantly deleting your own Digimon. And if you're able to delete them and then gain some sort of value in the form of a tamer off of that, then you never lose tempo. You're pushing damage, you're hitting your opponent's security really hard, and then it plays out a tamer after that, and now your opponent has to be ready to deal with that follow-up tamer. And when they're not ready for it, you just kind of just steamroll sometimes. On to the next rookie. We're playing 4 copies of one of my favorite cards in Digimon. I know a lot of people don't like this Digimon, or whether they don't like the Digimon himself, or they don't like how good of a card it is in this game. I like how good the card is in this game. I also love this Digimon. Like I like that Adventure 2 movie. I like Louis. I like the scene with the baseball bat. I love all of that. But that's not why we're playing them. We're playing them because, you know, when Ukko's Ukko, right? You push it out, you search top 3, add a card to your hand. Just consistent. And you want to do that specifically with this deck because the faster you can find the key cards you need to combo off, if you can find that very early, you just kind of generate insane value. Like once you do your first swing with the Kendo and the Beowulf and all the other hybrids you see in this deck, then you're set. But sometimes you need a little bit of searching to get to that point. In addition, you know, if I could play more, I would. But Bandai only lets me play 1 more Ukko, and we're playing the promo Ukko. It doesn't search like these other ones, but it does give you a little bit more memory to work with. The same thing, right? You push out a Ukko, instead of searching top 3, you just hatch a card and gain a memory. When you're playing this card, it's always important to hatch first and then gain the memory. There'll be some really nasty Digimon players that will, you know, you'll gain the memory first, and then they'll tell you, well, you technically didn't hatch, so you can't hatch anymore. Those people are definitely not fun to play with, but to avoid any sort of awkward interaction, make sure you hatch first, then gain the memory. I also want to talk about Ukkomon for a little bit, because obviously, very popular or unpopular card depending on how you see it. One of the things that Ukko takes advantage of in this card game is the weird flawed system of just generally having a 1 mulligan hand, right? So that means you open your first 5 cards, and if you don't like that, you can mulligan for another 5 cards. Now, sometimes opponent will play a hand out that has like no rookies and perhaps a training or an analog boy. When that happens, Ukko punishes that play very hard, right? Your opponent, they're keeping a hand that has no level 3, but they have a training. So they go ahead and they go first, right? They go, just play training, put you to 2 memory, and they'll pass 2 memory to me. So what I'm going to do when I see that is I'm going to evo into perhaps a Lobomon in the back, a 0 cost rookie, and then I'm going to hard summon one of these rookies in the front for 3 and put them back to 1. Well, now they're starting off at 1 memory with just a training in the back, with no rookie in the back, which means they're not going to do anything for that turn. So when turn passes back to me, my rookie's going to push out, and then Ukko's going to search 3 more cards, add them to the hand, and then hatch again. This puts so much pressure on so many decks whenever they can't answer Ukko correctly. But additionally, one of the strengths of this card is actually like a skill-based sort of thing. And I'm not to say that I'm a very skillful player. I think I'm okay at the game. I'm pretty decent. You get so much value from this card, the more you know your opponent's deck. So if you're playing against an Ultra S deck, and you know that their Garurumon or their Greymon can't really pop this card at the level 4 stage, they pop at the level 5, well, sit on Ukko, don't swing with it, just sit on it and see if your opponent can answer it. If you know they can answer it, then go ahead and get the chip in. The chip always helps because it helps you get closer to winning the game. It helps you get the draw from the egg, but you really want to abuse this card as much as you can. Sometimes you could just win games off of this card without doing all the other crazy stuff that the deck has to offer. Do you need to play Ukko? Absolutely not. But does it help win in certain games out of nowhere just because you have Ukko and your opponent doesn't have anything to answer it? Absolutely. Moving on with the 4s. I'm going to show you the first one is 1 copy of BT18 Lobomon. This is just a searcher, but actually searches security. It's when Digivolving, search your security stack and add 1 card with a 10 warrior or hybrid in this traits to your hand. Then recover 1 and then shuffle your security stack. This is kind of good. Good searching, good consistency. Sometimes your pieces are locked into your security with any deck you play. Well, this card now gives you access to your entire deck. So either you're searching through your deck, digging through a bunch of cards and you find what you need. And if it's not in your deck, then it's going to be in security. The more security you have, the better this card becomes. If you find this card early, it's definitely good to use it. And it has an inherited effect when attacking. If you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, you'll draw 1. One unique thing about this deck is a lot of cards in this deck have that inherited effect. And sometimes I have 4 cards in hand. I swing once, and now I'm at 8 cards in hand because I have a bunch of these inheriteds stacked under 1 Digimon. You'll unbrick right away once you resolve these cards. Next card we're playing is 2 copies of V-TamerdotEXE. When Digivolving until the end of your opponent's turn, this card can't be deleted by card effects. That's sort of relevant sometimes in specific matchups. Any card, any red deck, any purple deck that's trying to delete, you can just evo into this V-TamerdotEXE. And if you have the correct inherited source under it or on top of it, then your opponent has to try to find other ways to remove it. But again, spoilers, the Tamer in this deck will help you keep this card on board. You don't play for that effect. You really play for the when attacking effect, which is when attacking one of your Digimon or Tamers, you can evo into a black or yellow Digimon with the hybrid trait in your hand, reducing the cost by 1. You can evo this over one of your Tamers and swing, or you can turn into one of the main cards of this deck, which is going to be the Beowulf, and you evolve into the Beowulf for 2, and the Beowulf will get a bunch of effects off of, if you resolve it, and it's a good card. But the reason why you really play this card is for the inherited effect, and this inherited effect is kind of busted. And if you play against any of these hybrid decks, whether it's red or blue, you're constantly interacting and dealing with this effect, and it's kind of annoying to deal with. All turns, when this Digimon will leave the battle area, other than by one of your effects, you may play 1 Tamer card with an inherited effect from this Digimon's source without paying the cost. You're oftentimes tucking this card under one of your Digimon has a Tamer with it, and if that Digimon has either an on deletion effect or some sort of effect that plays out the Tamer, well, effectively your stack will, with this Beatomon under it, will split off into 2 Tamers if that Digimon gets deleted or removed from the field. Again, these inherited effects, you're constantly recycling them, so you never lose tempo when you're playing a deck like this because you're swinging with the Tamer, you're evoing into something, whatever you're evolving into gets some sort of value, and then when they try to kill this card on the clapback, well, it's going to play out a Tamer. Now your opponent has to spend resources to kill the card and deal with the Tamer afterwards. In addition to Beatomon, we're playing his upgraded form, which is 2 copies of Magnagarurumon from the same set. It evos over Digimon or hybrid for 4. Don't ever do that. You're just gonna lose if you ever like, you can if in a really bad situation, but that's not where you're playing this card. He's a blocker and he has on play when Digivolving, Digivolve 1. Now, at first I didn't think this card was going to be that great, but as I started playing more matches and more games, sometimes your opponent has a sticky unit that just needs to get de-Digivolved, and you can out it in so many other ways, but you have to de-Digivolve it first. That's kind of why you play this card, but you also play because it's inherited, it's a blocker. You kind of want that in certain situations where if you can make this card sort of immune with the Beatomon, as in it can't be deleted, and you have the Tamer under it, then it's really hard for your opponent, again, to remove these cards. And sometimes they have a card that has like security plus 5 and they're going to try to clear your whole security. Well, you can sit on this card and protect it, or have this tucked under one of your cards that, you know, one of your hybrids. If that can block and stop that attack, then you kind of save yourself a lot of security. I had it at 1, and then I realized, you know, there's a lot of cards in here that have good on deletion effects, so let's just put blocker under it and let's have my opponent figure out how to deal with it. All right, next level we're playing is 1 copy of the promo Lobomon. This card is only at 1 because it's limited, and man, I wish Banda can get this at least to 2, or just get him off the ban list. He's not doing too much, but he actually does a lot. Let's get into it. When Digivolving, it can warp Digivolve into Ancientgarurumon in your hand for a memory cost of 1, ignoring the Digivolution requirements, and then if it does, at the end of that turn, you delete this card. This card's at 1 for a reason. It's insane. It's really powerful. It ends games really quickly when you see it. Let me just go into the inherited effect. Your turn, when this card would evo into an Ancientgarurumon in your hand, you can reduce the cost by 2. Now, when this card's at 1, effectively you're going to just use it once per game. You can recycle this card with some cards in the deck, but you're usually just using it once or twice. But now with new Tamer, you can infinitely recycle that effect. So when this card dies, you know, because you warp into the Ancient, you tuck it under the Tamer, and then when that Digimon, whether it's a Kendo or a Beowulf, if that turns into the Ancient, you still get to apply that reduction cost. And when you get into an Ancient very cheaply with this deck, you kind of just push yourself so far ahead in tempo. You know, if you find this card in your hand, you keep it. If you find, like, if there's a search that finds this card, add it as fast as you can, because this card will definitely change games once you're able to resolve this effect, not just once, but multiple times in the game. Hopefully Bandai gets him off the ban list, and then we can start doing really crazy stuff with this deck. Next level 4 we're playing is possibly the most critical card of this deck. You need to find this card as fast as possible. If you can find it, it really kind of increases your win percentage a lot. Not just because you're drawing a bunch of cards, but the card is just insane. Magnagarurumon BT17 Digivolves over Koji for 2, evos over Lobomon for 1. It also evos over 3 over a yellow or a blue Digimon. Normally I would say you will never do that, but you would actually do that. You do that a lot. If you find this in your opening hand and you have a Strabi, you evo over 3 over Strabi, you evo into Kendo, and that's it. But it has a win attacking effect, draw 1. And that's also true for its inherited effect. And I'll kind of combine those two because it's the same effect, which is when attacking, the main effect being draw 1, and the inherited effect, if you have 7 or less cards in hand, draw 1. Just all around consistency. The main thing about this card is that second when attacking effect, which is, or this Digimon may Digivolve into a hybrid card in your hand, reducing its Digivolution cost by 1. So most hybrid players are kind of familiar with this combo where the Kendo will attack, it'll turn into a Lobo for a cost of 0, and then that will warp into the Ancient. And that is still a good play in this game. But however, you now have access to a new line, which is this new Beowulf one that just came out in AD1. And the cool thing about it is both lines are really good cards to go into, depending on what matchup you're up against, depending what's on your opponent's board. And this card is just much stronger now. Before, you would only go into the Ancient, and while Ancient's really good, it was also a very linear play, and some people can play around it. Now that you have access to Beowulf and the Ancient, it's much more difficult for your opponent to play around both cards because they both kind of have completely different effects and follows for those effects. You need to find this card. He does everything that the deck needs to do, and he has a lot of consistency. That win attacking effect of drawing 1 is very underrated, but there are times when I'm just drawing like 3 or 4 cards like 1 attack, and it's insane. Minimal 4 up, maximum 4 up, always play 4. So one of the first possible lines you go into is this Lobomon. This is BT17 Lobomon. This card evils for 3 over a blue or yellow Digimon. It's not really good when you go into this card, to be honest. It digivolves over a Koji or a Kendo for a cost of 1. And again, the Kendo, when attacking, can evo into this card, reducing its evo cost. So it's effectively a free cost when you have the Kendo. It has a when digivolving effect. And this is the main combo of this deck. Is when digivolving, if Kendergurumon is in the Digivolution source, or you have a black or purple tamer somewhere on the board, this card can warp Digivolve into Ancientgarurumon for a cost of 3. And if you evo by that effect, this Digimon gets deleted at the end of the turn. You can now abuse this card in different ways that you couldn't before, because the tamer tucks cards under. So before you had to evo into Kendo directly, and then the Kendo has to attack, and then it will evo into the Lobo, which will let you warp into the Ancientgarurumon. But now you can actually tuck a Kendergurumon from your trash under one of your tamers, and then that tamer can just evo into the Lobomon right away, and it'll see that there's a Kendo in the inherited stack, and it can just warp right away. It'll cost 2 to if you evo over the Koji, and then it'll cost 3 more to warp into the Ancient, but that's still a good card. On to the 5s. We're only playing 4 copies of them, and believe it or not, you'll find this card with how much card draw the deck has access to, and that is 4 copies of the new AD1 Lobomon. It evos over a yellow level 4 Digimon for a cost of 3. When you attack using your Kendergurumon or your Beetlemon, you can evo into this for effectively a cost of 2. And then it evos over a Koji with 2 or more inherited sources under it for a cost of 3. So that's very nice. It has a when digivolving when attacking. One of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 4,000 DP. That's kind of weak. And this is kind of one of the weaknesses of this card, but what I'm gonna say right now is gonna kind of throw things off a little bit. That's weak at face value. I also should mention it has jamming. Throw that in there. The when attacking and when digivolving effect is not once per turn. So if you're gonna evo into the Lobomon, do minus 4k, and then attack right after, you're doing another minus 4k. And it also has that same effect as the inherited, which is when attacking, when your opponent's Digimon get minus 4,000 DP for the turn. Now, I don't know if you were able to already guess it, but when you can stack multiple Bell under a tamer, you can do some crazy stuff like minus 4k when digivolving, then you attack, and you can do minus 8k after that, and you can do minus 12k to a Digimon board out of nowhere, or you do minus 4k across multiple Digimon. That effect's actually pretty good, especially in the concept of this deck. The deck usually have weaknesses against wider boards. This Bell effect kind of helps you fix that by just clearing all these little small bodies so your opponent has 1 stack. This is why the card's good. It says end of attack on deletion, which says you may play a yellow, black, or purple tamer with an inherited effect from your hand or trash without paying the cost. And then you can tuck a card under itself or under that tamer to draw 2 cards. This card kind of like you cycle so fast in this deck, from the Kendo drawing, from the Kendo inherited effect of drawing, from the Lobomon effects from drawing, the eggs of drawing, everything's drawing, and then your tamer draws off of that too. And so this card usually will always proc that effect because it has jamming, so you swing at security, it will live because of jamming, then you play out a tamer, and then you draw 3 cards off of that. Yeah, as an on deletion effect. So it dies, you also play tamer, take a card under it, and draw 2. Certain decks that can't de-digivolve this card are forced to delete it, and when they do, they end up giving you like 2 tamers off of that. Then the game sort of gets out of control. You're going to find most opponents not trying to get rid of this card. They're going to try to stun it, de-digivolve, leave it on board, ignore it, because if you could trigger the end of attack, play tamer, and then your opponent deletes it right after, if they're not killing you that turn, you're almost certainly going to win on the following turn. It generates a lot of value. It's a really good card. Is it as good as the Aldermon that Red Hybrid got? Absolutely not. And there's only one reason for that, in my opinion. Well, actually, there's 2 reasons. 1, the Aldermon has Rush, but 2, the Aldermon lets you draw first, and then you play Tamer. This one, you have to play a Tamer first, and then you got to tuck a card under itself or the Tamer. When you're using this card, you actually have to take advantage of the fact that you can tuck a card under a Tamer or himself. There's so many cards that you can tuck under him. You can tuck under the Promo Lobomon, and that will let you take advantage of that Promo Lobomon inherited effect to reduce the cost into Ancientgarurumon. That becomes a 2-cost evo. You can tuck a Strawbymon under it that lets you play a Koji on deletion. So when this card dies, he'll play out a Tamer, and that Koji will play out a Tamer. Or sorry, the Strawberry will play out a Tamer. Or you can tuck a card under the Tamer, for example, a blocker, Metal Kabuterimon. And when that evos, you can pass turn with just a blocker. It's a very underexplored card. People dismissed it earlier as like this card kind of like but it's not. It's actually okay. It's actually good, and the more I play it, the better it gets. And if you can chain off his inherited effect and his wind attacking effect multiple times on one attack, you just kind of clear board. You're getting insane value from this card. I'm not going to say it's cracked, but it is really good. We're now on to the 6s, and the first of the 2 boss monsters of this deck. We're talking about how Kendo kind of spins off into Beowulfmon, or goes into the Lobo, which now goes into the Ancientgarurumon, BT17. This card, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful cards ever released in this card game. It gets you so much value for so little. There's so many good things on this card, and this card forces games to end very quickly if your opponent can't contest it. And even when they do contest it, it triggers a bunch of effects. This card, if you guys recall, caused the limitation of like Hammer Spark, perhaps of Ukkomon. I think it was Ukkomon. It caused the limitation of the promo Lobomon. It's an insane card, and again, to this day, I don't feel like this card or even the other ancient, which is Ancientgarurumon, I don't feel like they've been power crept. These effects are just really strong. Let's get into it. It evolves over a yellow or a blue Digimon for a cost of 4. Back then, you didn't really do that. Now you do, because you have a Beowulfmon, and there are times when you do want to evolve into this card directly from the Beowulfmon. And as an on-play when Digivolving, return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to the hand. That effect is really good against single stack decks, is not so great against effects or decks that go wide, which is why the Beowulf's really good for this card, because the Beowulf can clear out all the small bodies. Then you evo, or your opponent is left with one body on board, and you evo into the Ancient to trigger that on-play with Digivolving and get rid of their last card. But that's not why this card's good. This card's really insane because of the your turn effect. Once per turn, when a card gets added to your hand, or it gets added to your opponent's hand, whether you bounce it with this on-play when Digivolving effect, or you proc it by drawing a card on your turn, your opponent takes the top security and they add it to their hand. This card is incredibly fast for this game. And in games when you're able to resolve this effect multiple times, resolve it twice and you're probably winning that game. This card makes games go incredibly fast. You're doing things, your opponent's doing things. Well, you're forcing your opponent to lose a security, which means you're not checking into it. And then you're checking a security, usually because you're attacking with the Kendo, evils into Lobo, which warps into this. Force your opponent to lose security, you check one, and then we get, if it gets warped into via the Lobo effect, at the end of the turn it dies. And when it dies, it has its on deletion effect, which is you may return a Tamer card and one hybrid card from your trash to your hand, and then you may play any Tamer card. It doesn't have to have an inherited effect from your hand without playing the cost. So you clear your opponent's board, you're forcing them to add their security to their hand, so which means you're not checking to as many Tamers or options, and then this card dies and it ends up with you getting an extra Tamer or 2. So now your opponent has to deal with the Tamers that are going to follow up from this effect. And if that wasn't enough, you can Digicross this guy for like 6 memory. You can Digicross it for 4 if you play the Ancient Guardian Deity. I'm currently not playing that card, but it's a card we can revisit in the future. Sometimes you just hard slam this card for 6. If you can do that against certain matchups like TS or something where you want to leave them at an exact memory count to deny them of their effects, well, you just do that. If your opponent has a big boss monster and it's the only stack on the board and you have nothing in the back, Digicross this guy. Tuck in a Kendo, tuck in a Lobo, answer that card right away. And when you answer them, well, they take a card from their security, add it to their hand. And if they can't answer the card on the immediate turn and you swing, or you are able to add a card to your hand from either your egg, your Hyarimon, or you're adding a card from Ukkomon, or you use a new Tamer to just draw a card, anytime you draw, you will proc that your turn effect. And the more times you proc that your turn effect, the faster you win the game. This card's incredibly fast, and in tandem with the Beowulf, you're now able to sort of threaten multiple ways to deal with your opponent's board and their security. If your opponent has a bunch of small bodies, or you go into the Beowulf and do all the minus DP everywhere on the board. If they have a giant single stack, where you go into this Ancient and you bounce it that way. And opponents are gonna, not that they can't navigate it, but they're gonna have a tough time trying to deal with both of these effects simultaneously and find themselves in a position where they have to guess which one they're gonna deal with. Are they gonna deal with the DP reduction, or are they gonna deal with the Ancientgarurumon? Maximize this at 4. This is your main boss monster. You keep looping this card. The more of them you find, the greater your win con is. So we're gonna go into the second boss monster that the deck has access to. Most people are familiar with Ancientgarurumon, but now with the new support, we can now play 3 copies of this BT18 Magnagarurumon. This card evils over a yellow, black, or purple Digimon for a cost of 5. That's kind of not great. It's a very expensive evil cost, but it does come up, and it evils over one of your Kojis with 5 hybrids under it for a cost of 5. If you can Evo over the Tamers, probably a little better than Evo over your Beowulf for 5. But 5 cost is still kind of expensive. This card's good, but it's not as great as the Ancientgarurumon, but it still has utility. And as a Win Digivolving effect, an end of opponent's turn effect, once per turn, by placing one Digimon card from this Digimon's Digivolution stack under your security, you delete all your opponent's Digimon that have the same level of the card you place under your security. So you tuck in a Beowulf, then you delete all level 5s. If you tuck in another Magnagarurumon or an Ancientgarurumon, because there's now ways to tuck under, well, with the Beowulf, you can now tuck under level 6s under your Tamers to proc this Magnagarurumon effect, put a level 6 under your security to delete all level 6s. It's a recovery +1 effectively, and you're deleting whoever's the most threatening on board. The weird thing about it is that it triggers Win Digivolving and end of opponent's turn. And that's the most unique thing about this card. Before, you would Evo into this card, and then your opponent would just delete it quickly because it had no protection. He would never live long enough to get to your opponent's end of turn phase, I guess. But now with the new Tamer, you kind of do have protection. And strategically, this is like one of the times when you want to use this card, right? Is in certain matchups that gain a lot of value end of turn. So if you're playing against a red hybrid deck, who have their triple Tamer that gives their hybrid the ability to attack end of turn, giving it sec +1. Well, if you have this card on board, when that happens, they will go end of turn, swing sec +1. But before the security check goes through, you'll proc this card's end of turn. You want to place the Digimon that has the same level as the card that's attacking, put it under your security, and then you actually blow it up. And that's actually one of the strengths that this deck has over the red hybrid variant, is that your Tamer gives you protection. It gives you some form of like at least a one-time way to keep Digimon alive. And if you can kind of keep this card alive in certain matchups, then it's actually kind of good. You don't need 3 copies in my opinion. I like 3 copies because I always want to see it. And early, I'm just either tugging it under Tamer, or I can trash it, or whatever. You want to see this card when you are able to go for the kill shot, because it has this alternate effect once per turn. When Digimon attack, by adding your top security card to your hand, this Digimon suspends. So you can swing, add your top security to your hand, unsuspend, swing again. 2 checks, not too shabby. It also works on your opponent's turn. And specifically, this is relevant if you can get the blocker inherited from the Metal Kabuterimon. Because if this card's suspended, let's just say you did 2 checks and you left it suspended, well, when your opponent declares an attack, you can trigger that alternate effect, which is add your top security. So you'll still lose the security, but the Magnagarurumon will unsuspend, and then you can block that Digimon right after. And a lot of times you don't mind if this card dies because you can rebuild the stack very quickly with the option that he has access to, and the Tamer will just let you draw a bunch of cards if it plays out, and you'll gain a bunch of memory off of it. That's one of the things about the hybrid decks, is that you don't mind when your Digimon die because you gain so much value when they do, especially if you make the optimal stack for it. You can play the promo Magnagarurumon. I'm currently not playing it. I'm not opposed to people suggesting it because it is a good card. I just felt like I wanted to see 3 copies of this card. That's it for the level 6s. We're playing 1 level 7. 1 copy of Shine Greymon Ruin Mode. This is actually a surprise addition to the deck. I didn't think it was going to be that great, but now that you can easily Evo into the Ancientgarurumon and warp into Magnagarurumon, you're able to utilize this card more effectively as soon as you see it. Evos over a yellow or purple Digimon for a cost of 5, and Digivolve with Shine Greymon for a cost of 4. You won't do that. When Digivolving on deletion, you do minus 5k to your opponent's board. You want to see this card a lot when you're playing against Ultra S, or against Adventure or Imperial Digimon, because you want to apply that blanket effect so that they can't push out and start doing all that crazy stuff. It's even worth mentioning that you may want to bump this card to 2, especially now because it's so cheap from the AD1 set that came out. I might bump it to 2 later down the line. Whenever I have it, it's really good, but it's also not good against matches where you don't need to see it, which is like Megazoo decks, like Royal Knights or TS. It also has its end of attack. You may delete this Digimon and recovery +1. Sometimes you don't get to that point, but if you do, it doesn't hurt because you recover +1, and then I think if you don't have if you have a Tamer, you can hatch in your raising. You won't use that effect that often. The main reason why we play this card is because people complain a lot that the new Shine Greymon support allows you to Evo into a Shine Grey Ruin mode, and then get to the end of attack, it dies, and then it applies this minus 10k blanket across your board. Well, you can do that too in this deck. And specifically when the Ancientgarurumon warps Digivolves and it has to die at the end of the turn, if you Evo into the Shine Greymon after that, you will Digivolve, you do minus 5k, then it will die, and then you do another minus 5k, and now you're telling your opponent, okay, well, you gotta kill me next turn, or else on the following turn I have like these 3 Tamers or 2 Tamers with me that I'm gonna start checking security with. It is a good card. It might be worth playing at 2. I'm currently at a 1 of. Now we finally made it to the Tamers, which is what hybrids are all about. We're playing 3 copies of BT17 Koji Minamoto. This card's kind of weird because it's blue, and all the cards from the new stuff are yellow, black, or purple. But I like this card a lot because it's a 4-cost memory setter, which is what all hybrids need. 4 costs. Start of your turn, you go to 3. That's all it has as the main effect. And then the inherited effect is an effect adds a card to your hand. You'll gain a memory and you gain jamming. The reason why I like this card is because it lets you extend plays. And with the new Beowulf, if you tuck under the old Lobomon that gives you a memory when attacking, well, this becomes a free Digimon. You go into a Kendo or whatever, it'll attack, you'll draw a card from the Kendo, then the inherited will gain a memory because you drew a card, and then the Strabi will gain a memory because you're tagging with a hybrid. It costs 4 to play, but a lot of times you're playing it out for free. But even if you play it for 4 and you evolve into a Kendo and that attacks, it'll gain jamming, it'll draw your card, you'll gain memory. When you turn that into a Beowulfmon, well then it'll be able to play out, one of your Tamers that are yellow, purple, or black. I like this card because I think it's really good with the Kendo. It's really good with the Ancient package. I wish it was blue-yellow now because of the new Beowulf, but the card's so strong in my opinion that I think it still warrants playing at least a 2 or a 3 of, or even a 4 of. We're also playing 1 copy of the Dual Tamer, which is a Takia and Koji. It costs 5, which I don't like a lot, which is why I actually cut this card in favor of the other Koji. I feel like the other Koji just gave me a lot of value. This card just generally better in the sense that it's better with the new Beowulf, but I don't think it's a better Tamer than the original Koji. Start of your main phase, you go to 2 if you have 1 or 2 or less memory. And then start of your main phase, you may place 1 hybrid card from your trash under this Tamer. For every other Tamer you have on board, you can tuck under 2 more hybrids under this card. So if you have this card only, you only could tuck in 1 hybrid. You have another Tamer, you can tuck in 3 hybrids, and that's okay. And to be honest, that's not why I'm playing this card. I don't even know why I said all that. It's not relevant. You only play this card for this end of your turn. This Digimon with the hybrid or 10 warrior trait may attack a player. This is kind of like your hybrid into game. Most of the time when you're playing against hybrid, they'll say hybrid for game. Well, this is like hybrid swing for game. If you can set this up, perhaps a turn prior before you do that play, then you can swing with a bunch of the other Tamers, and then you'll probably get down to like 1 or 0 memory. Any hybrid can evolve into this card, and then that card may swing. And one thing I do want to mention with this card, and this is with the Warp Lobo, the blue-yellow one, is that there's a loophole that I'll show you later where you can actually evolve into the Lobo, warp into the Ancient, and the Ancient will not die at the end of the turn, even though the Lobo does say delete this Digimon at the end of the turn. I'll show you that in the combo highlight afterwards. You do want at least 1 copy of this card just for that end of turn effect. Everything else I think is irrelevant on this text. His name is Koji. It has Koji in its name, so your Strabimon that has an on deletion play a Koji can't play this card out. It synergizes because of the color, and it's good because of the inherited effect. That's it. You don't need to know anything else about this card. You don't want to tuck things under this card either because you want to tuck them under the next Tamer that we're about to see. If Kendo was the main card you want to see in this deck, this is the second card you want to see in this deck as fast as you can. This card's insane support for all hybrids in general. And that is JP, Koji, and Koichi from AD1. One has a beautiful, it has beautiful artwork, it has JP, Koji, and Koichi with the Magna in the back. It's a 5-cost Tamer. Don't want to play this for 5 if you can help it. Sometimes you're forced to play it for 5 when your hand's really bad, but you want to cheat this out with the Beowulf. You want to cheat this out with the Ancient, and then the game, I wouldn't say it plays itself afterwards, but you're going to generate insane amount of value from this card. And when it's checking security, it plays itself out. Start of your main phase and on play, you may place up to 2 hybrid cards from your hand or trash under this Tamer to draw 1. Then, if there are 4 or more hybrids under this Tamer, you'll gain 2 memory. This card is your engine. This card does a lot. You're tucking, or how do I say it? This is like the weapon center of this deck. The card you tuck under here, or I guess the card you choose to tuck under here, is based off of whatever board you're up against at the moment. This thing lets you recycle all the inherited effects, like the Beetlemon that plays out a Tamer when it'll leave the field, the Strabimon that gains a memory, the Strabimon that plays a Tamer when it's deleted, all the draw 1 cards from all the level 4s, the Beowulfmon being able to do minus DP reduction. You're constantly stacking things under this Tamer to make, I wouldn't say like a perfect stack, but the most optimal stack to deal with a certain board. A lot of the times when I lose with this deck is because I placed the wrong card under this Tamer. And normally it's quick and easy to say, well, that's the deck's fault, and it's not the deck's fault. The issue with this deck is that you kind of had to play in advance. But what you tuck under here on like turn 2 will be relevant in about like a turn after, 2 turns afterwards. There are times when I tuck in the promo Lobomon that lets you reduce the evo cost for the Ancientgarurumon, and then I don't have the Ancient at the time, but I anticipate drawing it. And once I draw it, then I keep in mind that this Tamer, for example, the one on my furthest on the left or right, is the one that's going to evo into the Ancient, while this other Tamer is designed to go into the Kendo, and the other one's for Beowulf. When you assemble the right combinations under this card, you create pretty like potent, lethal bodies that attack, and your opponent has to answer them right away. And when they try to answer them, they have to deal with this inherited effect, which is all turns once per turn. When this Digimon with a hybrid or 10 warrior in its trait will leave the battle area, by adding your top security to your hand, they stay. This is what makes this card stand out from the red hybrid counterpart. When I'm playing against the red hybrid, I notice that their tamer is really aggressive, because that's how the deck is built. They have an Alderman or Rush, they have end of turn, sec +1 at swing. This deck is more defensive, and it's actually the difference between the two decks is that this is a more defensive deck with the more controlled base options. This warps into the Magnagarurumon. Well, now all of a sudden, your opponent has to deal with that Magnagarurumon's effect. They can't get rid of it easily because of this inherited effect. If this tamer warps into the ancient and you're warping into it with the promo Lobomon, that ancient has to die at the end of the turn. But you can actually use this effect to just add your top security to your hand, and then the ancient won't die. Like, there's just so many combinations with this deck. You can put blocker under here, you can put DP reduction, you can put draw one. This video will take decades for me to finish if I go over each different interaction or each combination to make your optimal stack. This is where I'm going to make things kind of a little creative for the viewers. If you guys can, leave comments of different optimal stacks under this tamer. So, you know, I might have seen it before, I might have not. If you have even played this deck once, you will know how many different combinations and how many dirty things you can do because of these cards. This card's insane support for this deck. Play as a 4-of. That's it for the hybrid tamers. This next card is just a 1-of. It's just a copy of the promo Louis. I do play a lot of Ukkomons, and you know, this card is not great without Ukkomon. It's a 3-cost tamer, and it's on play. You may move one of your Digimon from your breeding area to the battle area. That Digimon, it's not that it will have rush, but it won't have summoning sickness, so it can attack right away. And then your turn, when one of your Digimon moves out from the breeding area, you can tap it to gain a memory. The way you use this card, sometimes your Ancientgarurumon does a check, or your opponent is down to like 1 or 2 security. Usually you want to get them to 0 and do a play where you evo into Ancientgarurumon. If you're able to do that and pass over to 1 memory on your opponent's side, and the Ancientgarurumon will die because of the promo Lobo or the regular Lobo effect, the Ancientgarurumon will add a hybrid and a tamer from your trash to your hand, and then you actually play out the Louis. If you have a rookie in the back when you do that, well, the Louis on play is going to push out that rookie, and then you're going to tap the Louis to gain a memory and go to 0 and keep turn. And that presents an additional check to win the game. That's really all you're doing with this card. You can play for 3 if you want, but you're trying to use it to be able to play it out for the last swing when you have a rookie in the back and your Ancient's about to die. The last 2 cards I'm playing in this deck are just 2 options. And yes, the deck is lower on options just because I wanted to have more tamers, but this one's good enough. This is good because now you have the color requirement. Let's just get into it. Dark to light, thunder to gunfire. 3-cost option that you cannot cheat the color combination. I want to say that right now. It means you need the triple tamer. Main effect, you may place up to 5 hybrid cards with different names from your hand or trash under one of your tamers. Then one of your tamers with 5 or more cards under it may spirit evo into Magnagarurumon without paying the cost, ignoring the Digivolution requirements. So this effectively lets you warp any of your tamers or into Magnagarurumon for a cost of 3. It's a 3-cost mega if you set this up. That's kind of good. And in fact, this card was always good, in my opinion, with the exception that you needed the 3 colors to meet that requirement. Well, that tamer now does it for you. So now the card's actually relevant. And if your Magnagarurumon's in trash and you have 5 hybrids anywhere in hand or trash, you can just tuck 5 under, warp into the Magna in trash, trigger its effect. You can swing with it, unsuspend, do all that cool stuff. This is really like a solid card. The issue with it is that this card does nothing if you don't have the Magna in hand. When you have it, you tuck under, you swing, you do a lot of cool things. And a lot of times you can end games, or you can just set up a really nice Magnaguru stack with blocker, memory gain, Beetlemon. And so play 2 copies. You can bump it up to 3 if you play more Magnagurumon. There's version of this deck that play more into the Magnagurumon and they play no ancients, and you may want to, up the count on this card. I'm only on 2, but you can mess around with it. The security effect is like some of the other hybrid tamer effects, or the hybrid option effects, which is when it gets checked in security, you can play a tamer card with the inherited effect from your hand or trash without paying the cost. Sometimes there are blowout games when your opponent checks this from security very early and you play out a tamer, or they check into the tamer itself. The game just kind of not ends then and there, but you get so much tempo off of it that sometimes it can be very difficult for your opponent to come back. But you play for the main effect, 2 copies. You can again cut this card if you want to, play Ancient Guardian Deity if you want to lean more into the Ancientgarurumon. But the main thing is this card being able to let you evo into your Magnagarurumon for a cost of 3, because that card does evo for 5. If you can cheat that out with this effect, then now you're now losing tempo. You're evoing into Omega for a cost of 3. That can turn to Shine Gray. That can do a lot of other things. You can do multiple checks. This is the entire deck profile. This is how I have it currently built. I like it a lot. I've been doing pretty well with it online. done okay with that locals. Changes to make, there's plenty of things you can do because this is a very toolbox heavy kind of deck now. If you're not a big fan of Ukkomon, you can cut these, perhaps all of them, and play 4 copies of the Searcher Strabimon. You can also ship the Beowulf and the Mega Kabuterin package, or the Lobomon and the Kaiser Leomon, the purple yellow versions, the Koichi cards. They have Retaliation. It has more card cycle. What you really want the Beetlemon for is for the inherited effect, and the Lobomon has that same effect. You can add a Raihimon or a Rhino Kabuterin. I won't go over the main effect, but it has the inherited effect similar to the Beowulf, which is minus 4k. There's so many ways to play this deck based off of what combinations of inherited effects you put under these Tamers. So this time I'm going to show you one of 2 unique things you can do with this deck. I won't necessarily call this a combo, but I'll kind of show you how to get started. To do this combo, you need this Taki and Koji, the red yellow one Magnagarurumon, one Lobomon, and one Ancientgarurumon. You kind of see where this is going. But here's the unique ruling interaction with this deck. When we evo into this Lobomon and you warp into the Ancient, this card has the effect that says, if this effect Digivolve, delete this Digimon at the end of turn. What that means specifically is that you delete this Digimon at the start of your end of turn. So here how this works out. Let's just say I'm at 0 memory and I have this Taki and Koji. I can evo into the Kendo and pass over to my opponent's 2 memory and then trigger the end of turn inherited effect from the dual tamer to swing. I'll attack with the Kendo, triggering the effect to draw 1, and then triggering the second one, the attacking effect, to evo into a Lobomon for a reduced cost of 0. This Lobo now says, if you have Kendo under it, this can warp Digivolve into Ancient. So you'll evo into the Ancient, paying the cost of 3, and the Ancient will perform a security check. If you can trigger the effect by bouncing a card to your opponent's hand, you'll also trigger the your turn effect to add your opponent's top security to the hand before that security check. And then normally when you do this combo, this Digimon will die. However, we are already past the end of turn step, which means any effect that comes after that end of turn effect won't see end of turn triggers. Now it sounds confusing, but what I'm trying to say here is that this Ancientgarurumon or this Lobomon won't reach end of turn again because you already passed that checkpoint, and this Ancientgarurumon will actually not be deleted. He'll stay on board, and in certain matches where your opponent can't leave this card on board, well, that applies a lot of pressure to them. So that's more like not a combo, but a unique ruling for this deck. All right, so for this second one, is not so much, it's also an Ancient combo, related combo, but it's not so much as a combo for how you execute the play, but more so how you set it up. If we go over the combo, right, and that is your Kendo evos over Koji, which attacks, evos into a Lobomon, which then will warp into the Ancientgarurumon. Well, at the end of the turn, the Digimon will die. And let's just assume we're not doing that weird Takuya Koji ruling. You can evo over Shine Greymon for paying its cost of 5, and then applying a blanket effect of minus 5k to your opponent's board. Then, at the end of the turn, because you warp with the Lobomon, this Digimon has to be deleted, so Shine Greymon will die, and it will get deleted. You can't protect with the JP Koji or Koichi because it only protects 10 warriors and hybrids. So the Shine Greymon dies, and it'll apply a minus 10k across your opponent's board. And that's kind of strong in itself. But this is how you want to do it. When you have this Tamer and you're kind of playing ahead of turns, you're playing in advance. Your opponent doesn't really see this coming until it's already too late. As I mentioned before, this card has a lot of utility in the fact that it's treated like a barracks, like it's like a weapon component. So to make this play, when I play this card, I'm going to tuck in this Strabi, which has an on deletion play a Koji, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck under Lobo. Remember that they have to be different colors. So this is going to be my blue color and this is going to be my yellow color. And then that's usually when I play the card. On the turn after, I'll tuck under 2 more, which will be another Strabimon and another hybrid of any color. In this case, we'll use Beetlemon because he's a black. So this time it'll be a blue and a black source. So now, when this combo, when you evo into the Kendo, and this attacks warping into the Lobo, which ends up on the Ancient, if you keep turn, you can pass turn by evo into the Shine Gray Ruin mode, applying a minus 5 across your opponent's board. Then it's going to die, and it's going to apply 5 more. So 10k. Well, if it dies, because you tucked under these Strabimons, your Shine Gray is dying, leaving behind 2 Tamers. And you can play another triple Tamer from your hand, or you can play the dual Tamer, or play the other Koichi. The Ruin mode itself, minus 10k, is not that great if you have no follow-up plays after that. You want to do the minus 10k to deny your opponent a turn of playing, and then the turn after that, you're doing like 2 or 3 checks per game. That's how you Shine Greymon. There's so many layers of combos you can do with this deck, but it was just, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.